The thing nobody warned you about owning something truly beautiful is just how fast people start convincing themselves it belongs to them too. First time I set foot on that lake property, the silence nearly knocked me over. Mist curling off the water hills, hugging the shoreline, not a single boat, not a single footprint in the mud, just quiet thick as a wool blanket. It felt like I'd stumbled into a secret the world forgot to claim. And for a while, that secret really was mine. Bought the whole parcel in less than a week, 100 acres, spring-fed lake tucked away behind old Oklahoma ridges, deeded right down to the last cattail. It wasn't luck, it was experience. Years working as a federal land attorney, reading every loophole, every way someone might snake public access through private ground. This lake, it was a fortress, not a single legal thread anyone could pull to unravel what I'd bought. Moved in, set up my desk by a big window, started writing legal guides for farmers, living quiet, breathing easy. For a year, it was just me and the wild geese. No neighbors, no drama. Then Cedar View Landing crept in from the north, a shiny new HOA development, all modern homes, neat lawns, promises of luxury rural living. Their northernmost row settled right up near my fence. Not on the lake, but close enough that folks started peering over, kids pressing faces to the wire like puppies at a pet store. It started small, a family waving me down one Saturday as I lugged lumber, asking if the kids could fish. Faces, hopeful, voices, polite. I set the rules: daytime, only no motors, no trash, no fires, keep it peaceful. They listened. Word spread. More families asked, and as long as they respected the place, I let them. Laughter echoed across the water, distant splashes, kids cannonballing off the shallows. I told myself, what harms a little neighborly goodwill? But boundaries are like docks. Takes just a little erosion and suddenly you're ankle deep in water you never meant to invite in. One evening I found a crushed beer can in the reeds. Next weekend, music thumping from a Bluetooth speaker, tire tracks in my grass, teens I'd never seen before shouting, "We're friends of the Parkers." Rules were slipping, not broken outright, just softened, like driftwood that's been out too long. Tried to talk to the Parkers, the family I'd trusted. They smiled, apologized, but then the husband said, "We pay HOA dues. You should be happy folks love your lake." That phrase, your lake, like they were already splitting the deed in their minds. I doubled down, more signs, cameras, not because I wanted to play cop, but because I knew where these stories end, and it's never with a handshake. Soon the line between guest and trespasser blurred completely. Cookouts on my shore, beer cans, candy wrappers, a boat scraping my docks so deep it left scars. Not a word of apology. That was the day I started putting my rules in writing, officially a quiet signal that the piece was over and the lawyer in me was waking up. Then came Memorial Day weekend, third summer. Bass thumping voices bouncing off the water. Whole crowd on my northern bank. Coolers, beach umbrellas, even a grill with a banner, Cedar View Lake Bash. They were advertising my lake like it was a public park. I marched down, unplugged the speaker, told them all, polite but firm, "This is private property. Time to go." They groaned, a few laughed, but when they left behind a mess. Beer bottles, diapers, plastic forks. That night I typed up a formal letter to the HOA board revoking every informal permission I'd ever given. Attached photos, cited the law, mailed it with every T crossed. 3 days later, Randall Crane, HOA president, replied, "We appreciate your generosity, but Cedar View residents expect access to the lake. Your fencing and cameras undermine the spirit of our community. We may pursue legal avenues to restore access. Restore as if trespassing was tradition." So I raised the stakes, built a 6-foot steel fence, buried deep cameras watching every angle. Signs, "Private property trespassers will be prosecuted." They struck back graffiti on my signs, fence posts, knocked loose trash left in the brush, shadows ducking my cameras. Still, I tried to be reasonable, offered to meet with Randall. He refused, said all communication must go through HOA legal. Then the community newsletter arrived, reclaiming our lake, full of quotes about how I'd divided hearts and made children cry. Manipulation in broad daylight. Odd. So, I sent a notarized letter to the HOA and the county, all prior permissions gone, trespassers prosecuted. Thought maybe that'd be the end. But silence from an HOA is just another word for plotting. Then out of nowhere, lawsuit. Randall, backed by the HOA, claimed emotional distress loss of community historic use. Their evidence, a decades-old memo suggesting developers consider letting the public enjoy natural features. Not law, just a dusty suggestion. Claimed 3 years of neighborly favors made the lake community property. I didn't even get angry, just poured a drink, stacked up every deed survey, email, photo, contractor bill. Found the marketing brochures promising lake views, never once lake access. Randall fired up the rumor mill letters to residents' posts online about land barons hoarding nature. I fought back with facts, sent every neighbor a packet titled, "Who Really Owns the Lake?" Someone leaked the HOA meeting recording where Randall called me the villain with a doc. That part actually made me laugh. Court day, Judge Harper, no patience for nonsense. Randall's lawyer tried community rights. Judge asked, "How long is this historic use?" 3 years, he muttered. Judge blinked, then practically rolled her eyes. Unless you can show me a statute granting access based on aesthetic yearning, case dismissed. She thumbed through my evidence, chuckled at the divided hearts line, granted the motion to dismiss, and warned the HOA about future harassment. If you think that's where it ended, you don't know HOAs. Suddenly, unmarked SUVs idling by my fence, drones buzzing overhead, one of my cameras smashed with a rock. A contractor blocked by a permit inspector who wouldn't show a badge. No permit required, just intimidation. I documented it all, sent one last warning to the board: next time we go to court, and I'll be the one suing. A week later, someone left a note: "Keep your fence. Lose your peace." That was it. Time to fire back. My attorney and I filed for harassment, interference, defamation. And then the cracks appeared: an anonymous letter from a resident apologizing, newsletters growing cautious, the HOA leadership suddenly quieter. Still, Randall pressed on. Dead fish dumped at my sign, pettiness in the place of strength. I put up banners: private property, no exceptions. Trespassers fined $10,000 and sued. Cameras caught neighbors staring but not daring to cross. This time I slept like a baby. Second hearing, courtroom. Packed locals, ranchers, reporters, even former critics. Now I was the plaintiff. Presented evidence, drone footage, audio affidavits, financials. Even a resigned board member testifying Randall had used HOA funds for intimidation. Judge Harper laid it out clear, not just a boundary dispute. This is targeted harassment, injunction granted matter sent to the state attorney. Randall looked like he'd aged a decade in 30 minutes. By week's end, 3 families quit the HOA. Home values dipped, rumors of misuse and lawsuits flying. My attorney pushed for damages, not symbolic but full cost. The HOA's insurance caved, $210,000 settlement documents sealed. Randall resigned. HOA board collapsed. I invested in new fencing, industrial-grade security, and bought a buffer strip of land between me and Cedar View, a dead zone, no more peeking over the fence. Custom sign, private property, HOA free zone. We don't do shared stewardship here. Local paper ran a story, "The Lake That Fought Back." Judge Harper's quote, "You don't get to vote on someone else's deed," went viral. Folks from across the state sent messages, pictures of their own signs, even a t-shirt of a cartoon HOA drowning in red tape. Cedar View never bounced back. HOA dissolved home values, dropped the community it sold itself as gone. My lake, it healed. Water ran clean, birds returned the silence, deep as ever. I walked the perimeter one morning, coffee in hand, not triumphant, just content. The land felt peaceful, and peace, I realized, is something you fight for, not something handed out. A rancher visited one day for advice. Before leaving, he asked if I'd ever sell. I shook my head, grinned at the water. Not for all the HOA dues in the world. And that's the truth. So here's the question that sticks with me, and maybe with you. When does defending what's yours turn into something bigger than property lines? Where's the line between community and private rights, and how far would you go if your peace was on the line? Drop your thoughts or stories below. I read every single one. Let's talk about justice, about boundaries, about what we owe each other, and what happens when karma shows up wearing steel-toed boots.